the new co-main event for March 8th, UFC 313 here in Las Vegas, is going to be Gaethje versus Fiziev.
Justin, are you ready, bro? 2, 1. Who are you?
Is he going to remain on the card that is happening next week in Las Vegas, March 8th? The answer is yes. They were searching for a replacement, and it seemed to me like Rafael Fiziev was always the front runner. For a moment, it seemed like it wasn't going to happen, but they got it done this evening. So, in fact, it is going to be Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev 2. It's not going to be a 5-round fight. It's going to be a 3-round fight. It's going to be the co-main event.
Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev 2. Dan Hooker breaks his hand in the build-up to the Justin Gaethje fight. CKB fighters are cursed whenever they make fun of other people for pulling out of fights with injuries. They always seem to be injured afterwards.
Dana White has officially announced that Rafael Fiziev is going to be the new opponent for Justin Gaethje in the upcoming co-main event of UFC 313. Justin was initially booked to fight Dan Hooker, who got injured and pulled out of this fight. After a lot of rumors, Dana White has finally announced that Rafael Fiziev is the new opponent to face Justin Gaethje in the co-main event that is set to take place on the 8th of March at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Dana shared his detailed thoughts about this fight.
I don't know how much I got to sell Gaethje to you. 13 performance bonuses in 13 fights. 20 of his 25 wins are by knockout. And Fiziev, in his last fight, was cut short due to an unfortunate knee injury. But prior to that, Fiziev had 6 straight performance bonuses, including the first time they fought, which was another badass fight.
This matchup was not expected by most of the UFC pros, as most of them thought that it would be either Renato Moicano or Gamrot to accept this fight. However, Rafael Fiziev is pleased to get this opportunity, and he is excited for this fight. He shared a video on his social media where he was looking quite happy after the fight announcement, and he warned Justin to stay ready for their upcoming clash on the 8th of March.
Justin, are you ready, bro? 2, 1. Who are you? Very good day in the office. And a Saturday, very good day in the kitchen.
The popular podcaster Ariel Helwani believes that it is going to be an exciting rematch between these two highly talented lightweights. Helwani shared his thoughts about the first encounter between these two that was won by Justin after a close encounter. However, Helwani thinks Rafael Fiziev was the winner of that fight. According to him, Fiziev is a really exciting fighter, but it's going to be difficult for him to return to the octagon after almost a year.
Now, this is a great fight. They fought 2 years ago. Gaethje won a very close fight. I thought Fiziev won that fight. Fiziev came back, fought Gamrot. Hasn't fought in like a year and a half or so. They've been trying to get him an opponent for the past year. No, maybe not a year. Maybe like the past 6, 7, 8 months. And it's been a little bit frustrating for him. But he is back. He is healthy, which is great news. Remember what happened at the end of the Gamrot fight? He got hurt. He is healthy, and he's looking to get that one back, and he's one of the most exciting fighters in the lightweight division.
Helwani believes this showdown between Gaethje and Fiziev is going to be a thriller. He thinks both fighters have their own unique style and skills, but the result will depend on who performs better on the fight day. Ariel Helwani stated, "He is all action. He is one of the most dynamic strikers in the sport, and he is going up against one of the craziest, most entertaining strikers in the sport. Let's see how Gaethje looks in this bounce back, but fight for him, and let's see how Fiziev looks in this opportunity to get back in the mix at 155 pounds. The MMA guru said that Rafael Fiziev versus Justin Gaethje is a good matchup. He thinks there were other options in the lightweight as well for UFC, but according to him, the promotion picked Rafael because he was probably in good shape ahead of this fight.
But it's gonna be Rafael Fiziev in a rematch. They went with him. I guess. I mean, what were the options here? They had Moicano and Gamrot. Those were the options. Maybe a Dariush could have been an option as well. I guess the making of the weight was also a big stipulation. They wanted this to be at 155 pounds. Rafael Fiziev, I guess, was in shape at the time. I know he's been looking for a fight for a very long time, which was actually something I was annoyed at him about.
The MMA guru further explained UFC's decision to replace Rafael Fiziev with Dan Hooker. He feels Justin Gaethje is a calm fighter, while Dan Hooker was an aggressive fighter, so the promotion wanted to replace him with someone who is also aggressive, just like Justin Gaethje.
They wanted to replace Dan Hooker. They didn't just want it to be another matchup. I don't know about the rematch. I would have liked a fresh matchup, but hey, maybe they offered Justin Gaethje a pick of a bunch of different opponents. And to be fair to Justin Gaethje, you do your entire training camp preparing for a stand-up fight with Dan Hooker. You're not going to want to all of a sudden switch it up to Moicano, Dariush, or Gamrot, who are going to be shooting in on you and trying to make it a grappling match because he hasn't prepared for that. You know what I mean? So, you know, that was the reason why Justin Gaethje said he didn't want to take short notice matchups anyway.
The MMA Guru also spoke about the first clash between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev that happened just a couple of years ago. He pointed out that their first fight was a close one, so this time they can prove who is the better fighter. The popular YouTuber also pointed out the weaknesses of both fighters and how it could affect the outcome of the fight.
Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev, the first fight was sick. They just posted it on YouTube. Very, very close first fight. Extremely close first fight. Something very important to note though. Rafael Fiziev slows down. That has always been his weakness in fights. That third round is always a problem for Rafael Fiziev. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to trust him to get through that third round and make it to the other ones effectively. Oh, no, I don't think I'm going to trust him to get through that third round.
According to MMA Guru, Rafael Fiziev struggles in the final rounds, so it will be interesting to see how Fiziev proceeds in the third round. He knows that Justin Gaethje is returning from a knockout defeat in his previous fight. The YouTuber doubts that Rafael Fiziev might still not be able to beat Justin Gaethje.
Does salvage the card somewhat. We get Gaethje on the card. This is a big matchup, but, you know, Rafael Fiziev, I don't see him getting this one done. You know, maybe Gaethje's not got it anymore. He is coming off a KO loss. He is getting a little bit older. Rafael Fiziev has got a lot less miles on the clock. But then again, you also have to consider he did blow out his leg completely in the Gamrot fight and hasn't fought since. For a reason, you would imagine, because he's been recovering from those injuries. I don't know if I'm going to trust him to beat Gaethje in this situation.
After Dan Hooker's injury, there were a lot of fighters who wanted to fight Justin, and they openly expressed that. Among them, two of the most anticipated names were Renato Moicano and Mateusz Gamrot. Both were ready for this fight, and they expressed their thoughts on their social media. Renato Moicano tweeted, "2 weeks is good. I have enough time for 2 or 3 sparring sessions. I will be ready if they call." The UFC legend Michael Bisping already knew that the UFC wouldn't accept Renato Moicano as Justin Gaethje's new opponent. Renato suffered an early defeat against Islam Makhachev at UFC 311 after the injury of Arman Tsarukyan, so Bisping was confident that the UFC wouldn't give another short notice fight to Moicano.
I don't think that's the matchup because we saw last time out, Renato Moicano, he switched up from Beneil Dariush to the main event, which of course comes with a lot of pressure. And when you're taking on the pound for pound GOAT in Islam, it's never an easy fight. And he was probably going to lose according to everybody that you asked, other than him and his coaches. But it didn't go well. He got taken down and submitted with a DOS pretty quickly, okay? And because of that, I don't think he's going to be the guy that the UFC look at to say, hold on, who's missed a short notice? Who's missed to save the day? I love Renato Moicano, and I respect and admire his balls for willing to do that, but that isn't going to be the one.
The second possible fighter was Mateusz Gamrot, but Michael Bisping also ruled out his chances as well. Gamrot wanted to fight Justin Gaethje on this short notice, but Bisping already knew that this was also not going to happen. According to Bisping, Gamrot is a good fighter, but his matchup with Justin Gaethje not a fan favorite clash.
Who else? Well, Mateusz Gamrot, he went up against Dan Hooker. He came out, put his hand up, said, my fight with Dan Hooker was very close, and he got lucky with the judges. Time to fix. So Mateusz Gamrot, of course, is ranked number 8 in the world. He's a very, very capable lightweight fighter. He's got great wrestling. He's got cardio for days. But I'm not sure if that will be my first pick. Yes, a great matchup. Is it a matchup that makes me lose my mind over? I don't know. Maybe that is the fight that happens. But when you look at it on paper, it's not the one where you go, ho, 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 I gotta see this one. But sometimes beggars can't be choosers. And then, of course,
furthermore, Luke Thomas also shed some light on the first encounter between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. He acknowledged Justin Gaethje's temperament and resilience in that close fight. According to Thomas, Justin Gaethje did a wonderful job against Rafael to register a win over him despite being on the receiving end in the beginning of that fight.
I loved that performance from Justin Gaethje against Rafael Fiziev. You know, he was down, he was getting beaten up, and he absolutely stormed back to win that one in dramatic fashion and in pretty quick succession too. I think it was only a 3-rounder if memory serves. You had to really kind of bite down on the mouthpiece and go, and he did exactly that, and Fiziev withered. And not only was that kind of performance really interesting in the fact that it went one way, then all of a sudden went the other.
Meanwhile, the UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier has expressed his thoughts about the injury of Dan Hooker that forced him to pull out of this fight. Cormier thinks it was a huge opportunity for him to show his skill set after his transformation. Cormier revealed that a few months back, he thought Dan Hooker was done and dusted and his retirement was on the line. However, the former UFC champion was amazed to see such an incredible transformation of Hooker that made him a completely different fighter.
For Dan Hooker to pull out of this fight, the injury or whatever happened to him must be so significant, because he has to understand and recognize that with the wave that he's riding, with the momentum that he's gained, with the victories that he's had back to back, none being more impressive than his fight with Mateusz Gamrot last year, where he got that decision and looked like an absolute Terminator. To get the Justin Gaethje booking for a guy like that, who very shortly ago, honestly, we were calling for his retirement. I thought that Dan Hooker was done. He was losing. He seemed to be not improving anymore. Dude changed his hair, got some brand new tattoos, and turned into a whole new fighter.
Daniel Cormier believes that if there was not a serious injury, Dan Hooker would have never pulled out of this fight. He thinks this was a big fight for Dan Hooker, and it's very disappointing for him to miss this fight. Daniel Cormier said for him not to be taking this fight right now tells me that it's very significant. How significant, I don't know. I'm at the UFC, so I'm gonna start asking questions, and every updates, I will throw in some YouTube shorts or something, but I will keep you guys in the loop for as long as I can try to figure out what's going on with Dan Hooker, because again, I know how important this fight was to him. Daniel Cormier also revealed that despite Dan Hooker's injury, Justin Gaethje was ready to face any opponent in the cage. The main target of Justin is to compete in the co-main event of UFC 313, no matter who would be his opponent. Cormier said that Justin wanted to fight at all costs, and he had no plans to cancel this bout.
But moving forward, Justin Gaethje is still fighting. I called him this morning, and my immediate question was, do you have any plans to not fight this week? And he goes, are you crazy? That's Justin Gaethje. He goes, are you crazy? Of course I'm fighting. I said, what's up, JG? What are you doing? He goes, I'm sleeping. It's 7:30 in the morning here. I thought it was 8:30. I thought he was in Central Time. I'm on the West Coast. I thought it was 8:30, but it was 7:30. He goes, of course I'm fighting.
The former champion pointed out the most probable names that were expected to fight Justin. However, Gaethje was super confident, and he clearly said to Cormier that he doesn't care about who he fights, as his goal is to win the fight, no matter how.
I said, well, there are guys that are picking their hand up going, I want in, right? Rafael Fiziev immediately said, let's run it back, JG. Renato Moicano said, I want in. 2 weeks is plenty of time for me to get ready. I want in. So I asked JG, who do you want? He goes, I don't care. He goes, I don't care who I have to fight. I'll fight any of those guys.
Moreover, Daniel Cormier mentioned that he wanted Renato Moicano as the new opponent for Justin. He thought it would have been an interesting matchup, as both Moicano and Justin Gaethje were coming off in this fight with embarrassing defeats in their previous UFC encounters.
I said, but for me, I want you versus Renato Moicano. That's what I would like. I think that's a fun fight. And I think that that fight looks more to people like the fight against Dan Hooker, what we were all expecting. I get it, Moicano just lost to Islam Makhachev in the way that he did. But JG's coming off of a loss too. He got beat by Max Holloway in brutal fashion. We learned that Moicano couldn't compete with Makhachev. There's no dishonor in that. There's no knocking him for that. Why not match these two up?
Before Dana White's announcement, Henry Cejudo said that he would like Arman Tsarukyan to replace Dan Hooker at UFC 313. According to the Triple Champ, Arman got injured before his title shot against Islam Makhachev, and now this was his opportunity to come and beat Justin Gaethje to get another title shot.
Arman Tsarukyan, what do you do with him at this point? I mean, do you automatically rebook him in the next title fight? Do you go back to the drawing board?
No. Yeah, he's going back to the drawing board.
Henry Cejudo thought that this was the perfect chance for Arman to revive his relationship with UFC and earn his well-deserved title shot. Dana didn't believe that Arman was not fit enough to compete at UFC 311, so Cejudo thinks by beating Justin Gaethje, Arman could have earned back the belief of Dana and UFC.
This is where Arman Tsarukyan could step in and rebuild that relationship with the UFC and potentially fight for the title if he does get a victory over Justin Gaethje. I mean, if I am Arman Tsarukyan, I am raising my hand. I'm like, Uncle Dana, I know you guys are all pissed at me. I know you guys didn't believe my back injury, just like they don't believe my damn eye. Let me fight him and let me go out there, and if I do get a victory, let me and Islam Makhachev go at another.
Henry Cejudo acknowledged the skills of Justin Gaethje, and he believed that his fight with Rafael Fiziev was not an interesting matchup. The former champion was confident that Arman Tsarukyan was the most deserving fighter for this encounter. Arman is the ~1 contender and is just one win away from getting his title shot.
Justin Gaethje is problematic for anybody. I remember when Justin Gaethje fought Fiziev. Bro, I really thought that Fiziev was going to put it on him, dude, on the feet. That wasn't the case, man. The highlight is just different. But if Arman Tsarukyan wants to make it right with the UFC, he needs to raise his hand. He needs to take it on a 2-week notice and actually try to get the job done.
However, Kamaru Usman didn't agree with Henry Cejudo's opinion. He thinks that Arman practiced for 3 months for his fight with Islam Makhachev, and now it's unfair to ask the #1 contender to fight Justin on such short notice. Usman believes it was a big ask for Arman to accept that fight.
Now asking Arman Tsarukyan to fight a guy like Justin Gaethje on less than 2 weeks notice and make the weight at 155 pounds? Come on, Henry. I think that's a tall order. That's a tall order. And listen, not everyone is built the same, Henry.
On the other hand, Dan Hooker has shared some updates about his injury in a recent interview with Sky Sports UFC New Zealand channel. He showed both his hands to the host, and there was a clear difference between their condition. The injured hand was swollen, and the New Zealand fighter confirmed that his hand got fractured during the training session.
To be honest, one of these hands don't look like the other.
One of the paws is not doing so well.
Look, talk us through it. What has happened in training, Dan Hooker?
Yeah, oh man, it was just sparring last night. Just as I do, just letting some hooks go.
Yeah.
Just throwing some bombs down range, and just caught one of the boys on the top of the dome with my knuckle, and yeah. And then I didn't think too much of it. And then but they sent me off to get a CT scan. Had a little CT scan, and they told me that my hand is fractured.
Dan Hooker also had no idea about the plans of UFC for Justin Gaethje's new opponent for UFC 313 after his injury. He admitted that he wanted to still fight, but the doctors denied his request. Dan Hooker said, "So yeah, I obviously still would fight, but with the medicals, they squeeze your hands, so we'll see how it all plays out," Hooker said. "We'll see if we can kick this fight down the road, or we'll just wait and see." Hooker was disappointed to miss this chance, but he had no regrets that he trained hard for this fight. He felt proud to choose this sport and pushed his limits. He said that there is no point in limiting yourself and worry about getting injured during the training sessions.
And this happens, you go into fight camp, you're putting your body on the line. It's not just you said off camera. You're not going to.
Well, yeah, people are like, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you just be a bit more careful? I wouldn't play this sport if I was a bit careful. You know what I mean? I'd be a cricket player. So it's part and parcel with the sport. Like, the training is hard.
Dan Hooker was in great touch before this fight, as he had won his last 3 fights against the fighters like Claudio Puelles, Jalen Turner, and Mateus Gamrot. So this was a big setback for Hooker to miss this opportunity of fighting in the co-main event of UFC 313. Dan Hooker stated, "It's unfortunate that it was this close. Obviously gutted for all the fans that I know that were excited for this fight. That's probably the main thing, I think. The Lords of War were not happy, and they took it away from you." Well, this is all we have from today's video, and hopefully you have enjoyed it. What are your thoughts about this replacement, and who would win between these two? If you liked the video, then give us a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more interesting content related to MMA. Don't forget to press the bell icon to get instant notifications about our latest videos.